In today's episode, we talk about how to keep more of the money that you make, like more money, how to keep more money in your pocket. Notice I didn't say make more money, although I think you'll learn how to do this in this episode too. We also talk about the practice of being a business owner and why this mind shift is a game changer. And we talk about a big mistake that a lot of business owners are making. And then we talk about LLCs, S Corps, tax structures, and all things that sound really over my head, but in a way that I can relate to and understand. So if I can, I know that you can. And then finally, what inspires an amazing mustache? Yes, this is the stuff that inquiring minds want to know. What's up, my friend? I'm Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas, and this is the Grow Your Video Business podcast, the show created for videographers to build a better business, make a bigger impact, and enjoy the journey. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Core Group. I am so excited for this episode with Evan Van Auken. Seriously, this guy has some amazing insights, and he boils things down, really smart, complicated things down in a very digestible and actionable way. Guess what? Yes, you guessed it. Registration is open now for the Onward Summit, and I would love to see you here or there. Basically, that's the same thing. You can save your seats if you go to studiosherpas.com/onward. You will be joining us in Detroit, Michigan for 3 days of education, networking, lots of laughter, friendship, and the inspiration that you have been craving for your life and for your video business. You can go to studiosherpas.com/onward, and depending on when you're listening to this, you might still be able to qualify for early bird access and save some dough. With that, let us get on with the show. If there was one thing that could have ended my business 17 years ago, it would be because of the numbers. I hate accounting, taxes, W-9s, W-2s, WD-40s, spreadsheets, all of that stuff. And I hate it mostly because I'm afraid of it. I'm just not great with numbers. If this sounds familiar, or if you're so new in your business that it's not even on your radar yet, you need Core Group. Core Group can help you create financial systems and tax strategies that you need so you can grow profitably, and they've been doing this for over 20 years. They become an extension of your team so that you can stay in your lane of expertise and then lean on them to help guide you along the way. For me, having a team of experts in my corner to help keep track of our books and just to make sure that we're budgeting for taxes appropriately, to have an actual strategy for our taxes and our accounting is priceless, and it allows me to sleep easier at night knowing that I don't have to be an expert in that arena. If you want to avoid surprises in your video business and you want experienced help building a plan for the future that you want, both professionally and personally, head over to studiosherpas.com/core for more information. And when you're ready to set up a free consult with them, make sure to mention Studio Sherpas for a special discount too. Got your back. Get more out of your accountant. Go to studiosherpas.com/core. What's up, friends? Hey, welcome to this episode. Today, my guest is Evan Van Auken, who is an inventor, educator, and entrepreneur. Evan, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, Ryan. Dude, you pronounced it right. Well done.
If you weren't listening to the preamble, I spelled it wrong. Whatever, nailed it. So the rest is just it's going to be gold. Yes. So Evan, you do all of the things. I found you. You were on my Instagram suggested reels. And I hope that we can share this video. I think we can share it in the show notes. Just a really cool breakdown of taxes and what it means to be a business and not a business, and why you should, be a business or, do that because of the money that you save and all of that stuff. So anyway, I was blown away just by the simplicity in that. Thanks. And looked at some of your other stuff. And I'm like, man, this guy just breaks down things that are big and complicated into ways that this little brain of mine can understand. And so I just thought it'd be awesome to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about like, what do you do? What do you, what's getting you excited about? What's getting you excited? What are you excited about? And yeah, okay, I'm going to stop talking. I'll see you later.
I feel you, dude. Ryan,
I'm done.
I feel you. I identify with that. Oh my God, yes, I do. So it's funny. You're one of the first people that said, "Oh, I found you on Instagram." Actually, you're the first person that said that. Everybody usually says TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok, so I probably would have.
I found you on TikTok, and so like, oh, I was found on Instagram. That's like a little personal accomplishment for me. That's really cool.
That's fun.
Let me fill you in a little bit though, so we can get your listeners tuned up for some context here. The reason why I make these TikToks and these videos is because one of my, I don't want to call it superpowers, but that's like if I had to think of one, it would be taking complex topics, distilling them down and making them simple. I love educating people. I love talking to people. When I was a fireman, I was educating people on EMT and paramedicine. You know, like it's just been throughout my life. I've always been educating.
Yeah.
But I've always been building businesses too. You know what that's like. Just trying to figure it out on your own, whether you're mowing lawns or, you know, creating something, building something, working on something, providing a service, shooting video or editing for people. You know, we all want something more. And I was one of those people. So I tried my best to build businesses throughout my entire life since I was 12 years old and on, you know, whether it was Pokemon cards or lemonade stands or mowing lawns. And over the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, we started to get better at it. Yeah, we started to get better. So my wife and I actually invented a product called Scorch Marker, hence the inventor title that you threw out at the beginning of the podcast. I was trying to wood burn with stencils for this plaque for the fire department, and it wasn't working out. I was destroying everything. So we came up with a better way, and we figured out how to wood burn using a chemical formula, where you would wipe this formula onto the wood, and then you would apply heat, and then the wood will only burn where you apply the liquid. And so it worked. We got the project done, and then I said, hey, what if we put this in a marker? Like, do you think people would buy it? And we did. And we turned that product into a company, and now today we're fulfilling purchase orders for Hobby Lobby and Michaels, and we've got a bunch of employees, and, you know, it's really cool. And so it was that company that really allowed me to take that next step after that startup phase, you know, and really start putting systems and people and, you know, procedures in place. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I don't know shit. So I started learning more, and I started reading, and I, you know, got mentors, and I got coaches, and I realized that there is a huge knowledge gap when it comes to starting businesses. There's a huge gap in financial knowledge and business knowledge. And I was like, what the fuck? Why wasn't I taught this in high school? Like, why didn't my dad teach me this? Why didn't my grandpa teach me this? Like, what? I was pretty upset about it, to say the least. But that's when I started this financial entrepreneurial journey of really trying to understand it. And the more I go down this rabbit hole, the more I realize that I don't know shit. And there's a lot to learn. And that business and entrepreneurship really is a practice. You start and you keep practicing it, and you keep getting better, and you keep getting better. And there's only some things you can learn by doing them. And that's why the social media was created, just to teach some of those things that I've been learning the hard way.
Yeah.
So hence inventor, educator, and entrepreneur.
Yeah. I love it. That's great. I love that idea. I haven't thought about being an entrepreneur or business owner as a practice, but, you know, like when I think about, you know, a dentist or my doctor or whatever, it's like they're, you know, or lawyer or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's my practice. It's like, man, I don't want my doctor practicing it, you know, whatever. But that's just the reality. It's like we're constantly learning and growing. And so to even think like, man, you actually never arrive as a business owner. There's no such thing. Like it's like constant like learning, growing, because everything can change. The market can change. And if you're just stuck and doing the same thing, then you're not going to have a business. So you're not going to be a business owner. So I love just thinking of ourselves as like, this is a practice. It's an experiment, right? It's just this one large experiment. Totally unrelated. You know, you talk about being a firefighter. Is that where the mustache came from? Because it looks like a firefighter mustache. That's exactly, you said that and I was like, oh man, it's all making sense now.
I grew up. So just to preface this, like I have like two parts of my life, two major like
Before
the
mustache,
New Testament,
and
Old
post
Testament,
mustache.
right? Yeah, basically. And that was my life before and after Rich Dad Poor Dad. Reading that book, right? It was like there's my life before Rich Dad Poor Dad, my life after.
Yeah.
But anyways, I read that book while I was working at the fire department. I was a firefighter
wow.
and a paramedic. I was working in San Bernardino County in California, and I did that for 8 years, running 911 calls. But while I was there, I was building businesses on the side, in between calls, working on my laptop, things like that. And so I actually just retired at the ripe old age of 32.
Oh, wow.
Last December. So, yeah, they my captain came in and was like, "Hey, bud, Chief called. You got to work Christmas Eve again. Sorry, bro. I know you had it off, but you're forced." And I was like, "Actually, Cap, I quit." It was fucking glorious. You know, it was all good. It was all positive. You know,
Yeah,
like we were close, but yeah, he helped me put in my 2 weeks, and I didn't have to work that Christmas. But that's because we had been building our businesses, and the income, the cash flow, the retirement, the health insurance was able to overtake it.
Tell me about Rich Dad Poor Dad. I love that book. In the 5-day challenge that I run, I covered the quadrant, but I would love for you just to talk about like what was it in that book that take me to that moment where you're just like light bulbs went off, and it really, it sounds like it allowed you to be able to have the confidence to say like I don't need or want this job that I have. Like there's a different future that I want. Paint that picture for us.
So when I grew up, my dad he's a baby boomer. He's old school. You know, you work, you go to school, you get a job, and you pay off your debt, and hopefully when you retire, you have enough of living to pay your health insurance and still eat. You know, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more, but no one had ever taught me. And so I'm on TikTok, right? I'm on TikTok. Maybe it was Musical.ly back then. And I see someone talking about Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I'm like, oh, this is one of the most influential books in your life? Like, fuck it. I can listen to a book. Like, why not? I've been listening to fiction. Why don't I listen to some nonfiction for once? And I learned how Robert Kiyosaki just kind of broke it down. That, like, your house is not an asset. It's a liability. It takes money out of your pocket. Things that are assets put money into your pocket. And I was like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, what else you got, Robert? And he's like, the rich don't work for money. They buy assets that pay them. Okay. The rich don't sell their assets. They borrow against them so they don't have to trigger taxable events. Borrowing isn't, taxed. And I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. And then we went over the cash flow quadrant, and I started to understand that I was on the side, the employee and the small business side, and I was paying either 40 or 60% in taxes. I was paying a majority of the taxes.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I get over to the other side, the big business and the investor side, where I only pay 20 to 15%? And that's when light bulbs started to go off. That's when I was like, okay, in order to behave in order to get taxed like a big business, I need to behave like a big business. How do I do it? And that's what put me on that path of like literally trying to figure it out. So I was like, okay, who does Robert Kiyosaki's taxes? Let's figure this shit out. Maybe I can find a lead there. And I found his tax guy, Tom Wheelwright. I got his book, Tax-Free Wealth. I read it. And then I called him. Picked up the phone. I was like, hey, dude, I need a CPA like you. And of course, he doesn't do taxes for people like me. But
right.
He has a network of CPAs that he trains. And that's how I met my CPA, who helped me with a tax and wealth strategy, who was aligned with the same vision that I read about in the book. And that's when I just blew the doors open. I said, let's go, full send. And I have never looked back. It was very eye-opening for me, man.
I love that. So let's just put this in perspective. I'm a videographer. Okay. Maybe I've got an employee. My goal, I've polled my audience, and the majority of people say they would love, their dream would be to make six figures. Like if they were making $100,000 or more, they would feel like very secure in their job that they own, right? The business that they've created. Sure. How can they take the principles inside of whether it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my own experience, and then I would love for you just to kind of speak into all of this. when I started my business, people were like, oh, you can write stuff off, you can save a lot of money. And I still didn't like totally understand it. Like numbers, accounting, all that stuff. I hate it. Like I'm just not good at it, but I was smart enough a long time ago to say I needed somebody to help me with that. And so, today we've got Core Group who's helping out. They're in our corner. They're for me. They're, strategic. They're smart with finances, taxes, all that stuff. Well, I remember like very early on, we got slapped with a huge tax bill, and I was talking to the CPA firm, and they're like, well, listen, if we switched you over from it, you're just an LLC right now. If we do your taxes as an S Corp, then you're going to save a lot of money. So I went from, I think, owing to IRS like $12,000 or $14,000 to like they put us on a different tax thing. We were taxed as an S Corp now. Yep. And I think we either got like a couple $1,000s back, or like they shrunk that $14,000 to like $2,000, like totally manageable. I don't know, what people's tax bills are, but as you're building a business, there are so many things that you can do that they might be complicated once you're looking at tax laws and all of this stuff, and it might just seem really overwhelming. But at the end of the day, in the way that you can approach and speak into this is a very simple, like straightforward way. What should somebody that's in this position trying to grow their business, what should they be thinking about for taxes growing?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because you brought up some really good stuff. Some really good stuff about S Corps, and it's really about how much money you keep, not how much money you make. It's how much money are you keeping? How much money are you not paying in taxes? How much money are you keeping in your pocket? Well, you mentioned the LLC stuff, and by default, most LLCs are taxed as sole proprietors or disregarded, and so that means it's just like earning money as a regular ass person. And your taxes with self-employment, federal, state, all that stuff can be as high as 60%, which is huge, huge. But then we look at S Corps, and you're like, oh, the taxes are less? But how? I don't understand. It's really, really simple, I've come to find, and it's the government. They want to incentivize you to do what they want. The government wants you to do these things, and so they give you tax breaks for doing them. They say, hey, you can play the game like this if you want to, and we'll give you a tax break for doing it, because it requires additional strategies that the government wants you to. They want you to hire people. They want you to set up a payroll system. They want you to take distributions. They want you to act like an S Corp and save money, and they're going to give you bonuses to do it. And so what's really cool is when you change the tax status of an LLC to that of an S Corp, you get to do this funny thing, and it's unique with S Corps. You get to split your income into two categories: the salary and the distributions. Mm-hmm. And the distributions aren't subject to that extra 15% tax that self-employed individuals are paying. Mm-hmm. And so it saves you 15% right off the top. And I'm just like, whoa, okay. If you're making $100,000, that's $15,000. That's not chump change.
Right.
And so I would have to say that the only way that you can get there and work towards that, there's a progression. You start out with the idea, if it's something that you really think is going to be legit and you're going to stick with it, you form an LLC. Okay, cool. LLC is not going to change your taxes, but it's going to give you that extra layer of protection and a foundation to build on. And LLCs can change their tax status to S Corps. So that's why when people ask me, do I really need an LLC? I'm like, if you eventually want to become an S Corp, yes, you do. Because people can't be S Corps. And so, your idea, you get your LLC, and then you eventually get taxed as an S Corp when you can afford it, and boom, now you're playing the game like rich people. I think that's cool.
I love that. I love that you saw a video on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you're like, oh, I want to know more about this. And then the tax guy...
Tom Wheelwright?
It's just... What's that?
Yeah. Tax guy, yeah.
I wrote that down. I'm like, I definitely want to... I want to read that book. Here's the thing. This poor audience, they're like, I'm just a creative. I just want to make cool videos.
Yes. Yes, I totally get it.
My heartbeat in this community is to equip people with the tools and the resources to be able to make cool videos, make inspiring videos, make movies, do this stuff for a long time. And it's like conversations like this where it's like, man, if I just took a look at, what would it look like to have a CPA or somebody else doing my taxes, looking at my taxes, instead of me just, hopping on, whatever the TurboTax and just, I did it. I saved a bunch of money by not hiring somebody. It's like, yeah, but if you have an expert, somebody who's educated in this, that can say, hey, did you know that if you switched from just an LLC to, an S Corp, you're going to save, 15% or more. It's like those little things. You do a couple of small things like that over the course of running a business for 5 or 10 or 20 or more years, and that is a compounding difference. I mean, it just makes a massive difference in your life and in the freedom. If you're keeping more of your money, I love that. Like, there's a difference between making and keeping, right? Who cares if you make $100,000 if you're only keeping 30,000 of it? But if you're keeping 50 or 80,000 of it, that's a lot better. So, in spending some time thinking about things that it's not super sexy, talking about the numbers and talking about S Corp, LLC, and all of this stuff, but when you do carve out that time to say, okay, this is important, and if I can bring somebody alongside that is an expert that can help me make some smart decisions here that are going to have long-lasting effects and impact, you're going to be so much better off, and you're going to be able to make more films, and you're going to be able to grow your team if that's what you want to do, and ultimately have more freedoms in your life. But the problem is, the challenge that so many artists have is we just feel like, well, like, I don't want to sell out. I don't want to, I don't want to have to care about taxes, and like, I don't need to know that stuff. I just want to do my craft, and I want to do my thing. And I would say that that's irresponsible, right? Yeah. Because if you have a gift of storytelling, of creating videos, you owe it to the world to do some of the hard work, which is like figure out your finances and your tax structure and your business structure so that you can keep delivering this gift that you have. Okay, I'm done preaching.
No, I agree with that, dude. I think it's paramount to learn the absolute foundational steps. You can build any business as long as you understand like a core group of principles, money flow and entity structure, taxation. Once you just like get it, like this is what Elon Musk does. He just understands the subject enough to be able to have a conversation with an expert. Like, that's it. The guy doesn't know rocket science inside and out, but he knows enough on the surface to be able to have a conversation with a rocket scientist. Do the same thing with your business. Yeah. Plus, the only difference between us and people that run shit in this world is that they just know different shit. That's it. They're not smarter. They're not healthier. Like, they're not differently physiologically. They're not any different than us. They just know different shit. So how do we learn what they know? This is where you start. I think it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really good. Well, tell me about, you mentioned this before we started recording. I was like, oh, this is interesting. You helped a friend or somebody start some kind of a video editing company, or what was that all about?
I'm glad you brought that up. A friend of mine, I like to exercise my idea muscle whenever possible, because
I can
that
tell.
Trickle of ideas that comes in, like when you're showering and stuff, and they pop into your head. It's like it starts to drip at a time, like a dripping faucet. But the more you pay attention to it, and you can literally crack that faucet open and ideas just pour out of your brain. Really, it's solutions to problems. And then you can just reach in and grab the good ones. And so in exercising my idea muscle, I wrote a business plan and ran the numbers for a company called VidSub, where it was a video production subscription service where a company would subscribe with a monthly retainer, and you would produce authentic creative for their brand, on a monthly recurring basis, right? Wide, tall, 60 frames per second, 1080p, whatever, and it would be a subscription service. And so we were trying to figure out, how could we make this work charging companies like $2,000 to $5,000? And so we were like, okay, let's figure out how much you would need to do like an hour's worth of footage. Like, how much time would you need to slot? And so we just ran the numbers and put it together. And based on shooting the video here in the States and then outsourcing all the editing to other countries. I myself work with editors from Colombia and India, and they're fantastic. and they're really, really good at what they do. And I pay about $8 an hour, and it's really affordable. And so how can you leverage that worldwide, reach to build a business here in the States for people and solve problems? And so that's what we did. And it was fun. It's not something I'm going to create ever, but it was fun to go through the exercise and run all the numbers and like take pages of notes and figure out like, is it actually profitable? Could you do it? The answer is yes.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's cool. And you bring up a good point. And whenever people are asking me like, hey, I'm like, I want to hire an employee, my first employee, like who would you hire? And I'm thinking like if I was to start my business all over from scratch today, the thing that takes the most time outside of like actual production, you're shooting 8 hours on set for a day. The very next thing that's going to take the most time is editing that 8 hours, right? Or 2 hours of footage or whatever it is, into something that you are proud of, that you love, that, speaks to the brand or, whatever. And, I was easily spending 20, 30 hours a week editing or more, for one project. And that's just not scalable. Like I just can't, I only have so many hours in a week, and I love selling new projects. I love being on set for new projects and filming new projects. But it's like, I remember at one point in my career, my team was like, stop selling because we were backlogged on our editing. We don't have any more production days left. And so, one of the very first things to consider outsourcing is editing. So maybe you can't afford to hire a full-time editor. There are options. There are people out there that would love part-time work, right? And they don't need to be an employee. They can be a contractor. And so when I hear $8 an hour for an editor, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, let me see the work and let me be the judge. But at the same time, regardless, to start thinking like it's possible to be able to make money on somebody else editing your projects. It might
100%.
take a while to get to a place where you're comfortable like handing off a project and like figuring out like, how do I actually explain my vision and what do I need? That process takes a long time to get comfortable with, at least for me. Other people might be better managers and better explaining the creative process and what's needed. And then you've got to find an editor that can understand the creative direction. But once they get it, I mean, I've had multiple editors who have worked for me for multiple years who they get it. They don't even need my direction. They're telling me how they're going to do it because they've surpassed my direction. But it's all about that partnership. And the partnership can be in the form of an employee, or it can be in the form of a contractor who you build a relationship with, and you just get each other after a certain amount of time.
Yep. And there's less taxes involved with hiring contractors, less headache, less overhead. When you hire someone as a W-2 worker in the States, like it gets expensive, man. Like it just costs a lot of money. There's a lot of infrastructure and support that goes along with it. A lot of rules when you could just, pay someone for working 40 hours a week for you for $8. Like, man, that's a good deal. That was a good, plus, if you consider yourself a videographer, not an editor, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
So then what the hell are you doing spending 30 hours a week editing, That's when I learned I did the same thing. I was doing the graphic design work. I was laying out all the graphics, building the websites and stuff. Like I could do it, but that's not me. That's not my strengths. And so I remember I heard Tom Wheelwright, the tax guy, say, if you can find someone to do the job 80% as well as you, and you can afford to hire them, like, let's fucking go. Like, what are you waiting for? Stick to what you're good at. Speaking of which, did you ever try to do your own books?
I never did.
Okay, cool. You're one of the fortunate few. I tried to do my own bookkeeping in the beginning, thinking, I'm a smart guy. I got this. Busted open an Excel spreadsheet. Dude, I fucked everything up. Oh, God. Yeah, I've been meaning to ask you that question, but anyway.
Yeah, that saying, like, know thyself. I've known myself in that capacity for a long time. Do not go near that. Awesome. And I was actually fortunate. My stepdad was an accountant, and so he helped before I started my business. He helped with our personal taxes, and even that, I was like, man, this is like I hated it. Just all of the parts. And I knew when I started a business, I'm like, this is the first thing that I need to delegate to somebody else, because it is going to be, I'm just going to create a mess, an absolute mess.
I feel you. I've done it. So what projects are you working on right now, Ryan?
Currently, we've kind of, over the past 4 years, we have built some relationships with course creators. So people that create digital content that want to package it, teachers, educators that don't want to travel as much and teach in person, but want to take what they teach online. And so we have what we call like course creator partnerships, where we do all the shooting, the editing, but we also build out, like on Kajabi, we build out their website, their checkout pages, we build their email marketing, we manage their Facebook ads. So it's kind of like this whole thing for somebody who's creative and that is an educator that just wants to do their thing and doesn't want to learn how to build and grow and scale an online business, which there are a certain amount of people that are really incredibly good at their craft, but don't want to learn a whole other thing. Like,
interesting,
like Susan, she makes these amazing floral wearables. There's not a bone in her body that likes technology or that wants to like figure out that. So for her to be able to lean on us, and we take care of all of the marketing and the production, and we have a revenue share model. It works out awesome for her, and it works out so good for us because we have passive income that we get through those partnerships. So currently we've got multiple partnerships that we're tweaking, some funnels and really some foundational stuff, creating some evergreen content and onboarding, blah, blah, blah. But as I look at my production team and I look at how many hours we have available each week to work on new projects, and my hope and dream is always like, man, I would love for my guys to have, profit sharing and to get bonuses and for us to not just have to trade our time for money. And the best way that we've found outside of, we've got some clips online that, sell on like stock footage sites, which, we might make a few $100 a quarter, which isn't like, nothing to write home. It's great. But for us to make, with Susan, she's made over $1 million in revenue, and we've gotten a really healthy percentage of that revenue. So that's a model where we do all of the hard work up front and then set it in motion. We have somebody managing the Facebook ads. She maintains, we send out like a monthly email, but it's not a lot of hours once the thing is built, and we're making money on that. So we're just trying to figure out how to continue to build those partnerships and be effective with the size team that we have, and figure out how to do it smart.
Oh yeah.
Smartly.
Dude, I like that. That's offering a solution to people who need it. There's a lot of people out there who are talented, business-minded individuals that just don't want to learn how to build that shit out. To be honest with you, I don't blame them. Like it's hard. Like learning Facebook ads and then hiring the right person and managing that, like that alone right there is going to deter most people, just because it's a complicated animal. How about learning WordPress? Fuck, oh my God. So I get that. That's really cool. That's a cool service you put out. And so you're focusing a lot on the podcast and then the company that manages these relationships, right?
Yeah. So me personally, we're also at the same time, I've got two businesses. I've got our production company, which is managing these course creation partnerships. And then I've got Studio Sherpas, with the Grow Your Video Business podcast, and really just trying to empower videographers in the business that they have created or that they want to create. So in the production business, there are just so many pieces to the fact that I'm running both things. I'm like, what am I doing here? What am I love it so much. I love my team. I love the things that we create. It's super fun and fulfilling. And then obviously empowering videographers and people that are trying to grow their business. That to me is incredibly fulfilling. So I like them both, and I'm glad I get to do both. But in the actual video business, there are so many things to that I want to automate and that I want to delegate, so that I took 3 weeks off earlier this summer, and that was incredible. I've never taken 3 weeks off, and the business is still running. Nobody was mad. It was just like, wow, this seems really healthy. But I want to be able to have those freedoms to step away from the business, and for the business to also grow in revenue, like where like the big jobs aren't dependent on me. but like we've got a sales team and a sales process in place where that's working. And currently we don't. It's not all automated. Like I still need to be a part of that process in most cases. So once I get that figured out, then man, I will have the business of my dreams there, because I will be able to step back and walk away and or only work on course creator stuff or passion projects or whatever, and then also invest my time with the Studio Sherpas community.
I think that's badass. How long did it take you to get to a point where you're able to take a vacation for 3 weeks? 17
years, I guess.
Damn, dude.
I mean,
okay, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. I understand.
I don't really know. I would say, have you ever read Traction? Do you know the EOS model? Yeah. So 5 years ago-ish is when that book Traction was introduced to me. I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, Gino just wrote this book to me. It just made sense. And then shortly thereafter, I hired a woman who became our implementer inside of the business. She became my business operations person and took on the implementer role that EOS describes. And in doing that, that's when I started like not having my hands in all of the things. Before that, I always had to be a part of the hiring and the firing of new employees or old employees. And I just had my hand in all of the operation, like the day-to-day stuff. So not having to be a part of the day-to-day operations, having money coming in from jobs that we're finishing and in maybe a couple of jobs that are about to be booked, I could step away and like that stuff is going to happen. I didn't think that I'd be able to take 3 weeks off at this point in my career. I thought that, maybe I was going to try 2 weeks and see how it went, but the way that it just rolled out, 3 weeks accidentally happened. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And I'll have my laptop just in case there's a fire and I need to, but there weren't any fires and there wasn't really anything I was going to be able to save the day on. So it just was silly that I brought it anyway.
Ryan, that's a big deal, dude. Like, it is a big deal. Congratulations. You know how many people own their jobs and don't even take a salary? Like, they don't even get paid out until the end of the year. Yeah. Like, they wouldn't even consider going on vacation because they own their job. If they don't work, they don't eat. Yeah. And if that's you, then the prescription that I would give you is a book called The E-Myth Revisited. You need to learn how to replace yourself. You need to learn how to replace yourself. It's the only way. Yeah. It's the only way to freedom. It's the only way to having a business and not a job.
Evan, talk about that. We touched on it with Robert's stuff, but own your job. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean own my job?
It's like the videographer who's working for a corporation. We'll just say it's a big Fortune 500 company, and you're making $80,000 a year shooting video, and then you quickly realize that, like, oh man, I could do this on my own. Like, I could make $100,000 a year by myself. And so something happens eventually one day, whether you leave amicably or not, but you decide, you know what, screw that. Screw this place. I'm going to go do it on my own. And so you do. And you know videography really well, but you don't know taxation. You don't know entities. You don't know how to run a business. You don't know how to hire people. You don't know how to fire people. You don't know how to manage. You don't know how to manage yourself. You don't have a lot of other skills that are required to run a successful business. And so they start as videographers and they create some videos and they make some money, but then they quickly realize that, that there's a lot more to it. And so what most people do there is they have left a company where they had a job and now they own their job because they are their job. So what happens on Friday when they don't feel good and they don't want to go into work? Who's going to go in? Nobody. They're the only person there. What happens if they want to take a vacation and, chill out? Well, if they're not working, they're not earning. And if you're not earning, you're not eating. And so that's what it means to own your job. It's not a good place to be, but it's necessary for a lot of people to start there. The good news is that there's a clear way out, and that all you have to do is get the right education in your brain so that you know what steps to take, so that you can replace yourself and not own your job. You can own a company. You can work on your business instead of in your business. And that right there is like the difference between successful entrepreneurs and people who will work till they die. I think. Yeah,
man. The only entrepreneurs and business owners that I ever knew, or at least the only ones that told me that they owned a business, were the ones that actually owned their job. And it was surprising because I'm like, you own the company. Like, why? you work like 60 or 70 hours a week. Like, that sounds terrible. I'm sure you're super rich because you own a business,
Right.
or really you just own your job. And I never understood that. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and saw the difference between, you start your business, but you're not technically really a business owner. You just own a job. And when you make that transition from owning your job where you are the central cog that everything, comes from, to transitioning to being a business owner where you're not really needed. Like, it's good to have you around. Like, you can speak into, vision casting and whatever. You can do some sales if you want, whatever, but the business runs with or without you.
That's the goal.
That is the goal, right?
That's
While you're doing it, like, and I know, you might be listening and say like, no, I love doing this. I love being the owner, the business owner, whether, you're calling I own my job or whatever, but I love it. It's super fun. It's super fulfilling. I wouldn't trade it for the job I left. This is so great. Well, do that for 5 or 10 years or longer. And if you really do love it and you love creating and you want to keep doing it, the best way to be able to do that is to have the freedom, if you wanted to be able to step away for 3 weeks, to have a kind of a sabbatical, to really, think about like, man, what's the next film that I want to create, or the next passion project, or where do I want to take this company? What is the vision that I want to cast? And if you're working 50, 60, 70 hours in a week, you don't have time to work on your business to think about, what do we actually need? What would be good? What would be healthy? What's the next best position we should hire? Is the team that I currently have, is this the dream team, or is there one or two people on here that are kind of poisonous to the culture? When you're in the business and you're just doing the tasks and doing the things that you have to do, it's really hard to find that time to think about the bigger things that really make the longer impact in your business and in your life.
It's true. Do it yourself are the most expensive words a small business owner can say. Yeah, you can't do it. If you want it done right, you do it yourself. You're an idiot. If you want it done right, you need to hire an expert so you can focus on what you do best.
Oh man,
like, I'm not going to go repair my own roof. Like, I know how. I could figure it out. I could watch some YouTube videos and I could figure out how to do the tar, the sheeting, the tiles. Like, I could figure it out. But really, I'm going to hire an expert that's going to get it done quickly, efficiently, and better than I can. And I'm going to stick to what I do best, running the companies and making money so I can afford to pay him. Yep.
Man, I love that. That's really good. So good. Lots of stuff. The 80%, find somebody who can do it, 80% as good as you, and you'll be surprised sooner, probably rather than later, that like, wow, they figured out how to do it better than I did.
Yes. Ray Dalio is one of my biggest mentors. Ray Dalio was the founder of Bridgewater, one of the most successful hedge funds of all time. Yeah. He came from nothing, became something. And I really, really respect Ray's journey because he's taken the time to write about all the principles and things that he's learned in his life that have really given him fulfillment. And Ray talks about that a lot. He talks a lot about people. He's a people person. He was one of the first companies to give each employee like a baseball card stats. Like their batting average, they would be like, they're high in empathy, a quick start, but very low in organization and administrative work. So people could really match themselves up for strengths and weaknesses. And Ray always says that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 5. If you can get two individuals together that are skilled, the output is so much greater than you can imagine. It's worth going down that rabbit hole to see who you can hire and add to your team. Like, do you remember when you first started adding people and you got your time back, Ryan?
Yeah. Amazing.
And you didn't have to work 60 hours a week because there was a few extra bodies to share the workload with. Like, it's a game changer, but you need to know how to do it right. And the only way to learn how to do it right is by educating yourself. And luckily that can be done with YouTube and audiobooks.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, we're kind of winding down here, but I do want people to know where they can find you. I know you've got resources, you're working on other stuff. What's the best way for people to look into what you have to offer?
Vanator.com. That's it. I have that's my mothership of all my stuff. So if you go to my website, you can find like my business course that I put out to teach people the stuff that we talked about. You can find my podcast and all my social media and my YouTube channels and my blog posts, and you can learn about me. You can see my companies, pick it apart, have fun. We can be friends. You know, you can watch all my free content and we can learn together. Either way, this whole journey of mine, the whole reason behind Vanator is to empower people with education so that they are not afraid to start building their business. Every time I get an email, it was like, bro, I started an LLC because of you. We're killing it. I quit my job. Dude, it's like, this is the best type of payment, bro. Like, it sounds lame. It sounds lame, Ryan, but like, no joke, it's cool shit. It's cool shit.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I mean, same thing here where people will reach out and just say like, dude, I left my full-time job and started my video company, or, I was able to charge this much where I used to think was only worth this much. It's a huge gift. I mean, what an honor to be able to serve in that capacity, and love the stuff that you're doing. You guys, Evan is trending. I mean, he popped up in my feed on Instagram. I didn't even follow the guy, so you gotta follow this guy. Go check out his content. It's really, really rich. Evan, you've got a gift, man. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Appreciate you, Ryan.
How would you want to leave us today?
Let's see. Here's how I want to leave you today. If you haven't changed it, you fully accepted it. So make some changes if you don't like where you're at.
That's good. Awesome, brother. Hey, man, I appreciate you, and excited for all the things that you're working on. Again, thank you so much for being with us today.
I really appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for introducing me to your people, and yeah, hopefully I'll get to meet a couple of them. That'd be amazing. But I appreciate you.
Hey, remember to check out Evan's website. The link is in the show notes. And don't forget about the Onward Summit. You can learn more about the Onward Summit if you go to studiosherpas.com/onward. I would love to host you at our studio in Detroit, Michigan. I would love to encourage you and help you grow your video business and do it in person. How cool would that be? Reach out if you need anything. My email is ryan@studiosherpas. And I just want to encourage you. Keep climbing, my friend. I will see you on the next episode.